The day my billionaire grandfather died in a helicopter crash, I knew my life would never be the same. What I didn't know was that within 48 hours, my entire family would turn into my enemies, I'd be kicked out onto the street, and I'd be standing in a mansion worth more than most people see in 10 lifetimes, while my parents tried to take it all away from me. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start at the funeral. Richard Montgomery was 78 years old when he died. Founder and CEO of Montgomery Innovations, a tech empire worth $7 billion. The kind of man whose obituary made the front page of every major newspaper. The kind of wealth that attracts vultures. I'm standing at the graveside, apart from everyone else. It's not by choice. Well, maybe it is. My family's clustered together like they're posing for a magazine spread. Mom in her Chanel morning dress, Dad in his bespoke Armani suit, my uncle and aunt, my 3 cousins, all of them dabbing at tears that look suspiciously calculated. I'm in a borrowed suit that doesn't quite fit. The black sheep. The disappointment. The 24-year-old primary school teacher who refused to go into business and wasted his potential. But I was also the only one who visited Grandpa in his final years. The only one who sat with him for hours, listening to stories about building his company from nothing. The only one who actually gave a damn about him as a person instead of a bank account. The service ends. People are filing past the grave, dropping roses, murmuring condolences that sound rehearsed. Then Margaret Chen, Grandpa's lawyer for 30 years, clears her throat and announces that the will reading will take place immediately at her office. The temperature drops about 10 degrees. Everyone goes silent. This is it. This is what they've all been waiting for. We pile into cars. I ride alone in my beat-up Honda Civic while everyone else takes their Mercedes and BMWs and head to Margaret's office in the city. The tension in that waiting room is thick enough to cut with a knife. Dad's checking his phone every 30 seconds. Uncle David's pacing. Mom keeps shooting me these looks like I'm somehow responsible for whatever's about to happen. Margaret calls us into the conference room. Oak table, leather chairs, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city Grandpa helped build. She's got this massive folder in front of her, and she's wearing the kind of neutral expression lawyers perfect when they're about to drop a bomb. She starts with the small stuff: charitable donations, bequests to staff members, pension arrangements for people who'd worked with Grandpa for decades. Dad's getting increasingly agitated, drumming his fingers on the table. Uncle David keeps clearing his throat. Then Margaret looks up, makes eye contact with each of us, and reads the words that will change everything. And the entirety of my estate, including all businesses, properties, investments, and liquid assets totaling approximately $7 billion, I leave to my grandson, Jake Montgomery. The room explodes. Dad's out of his chair so fast it crashes backwards. That's impossible. He's 24 years old. He doesn't know the first bloody thing about running a company. Mom's shrieking something about rightful heirs and family obligation. Uncle David's threatening legal action, talking about mental competency and undue influence. My cousins are just staring at me like I've personally murdered someone. And me? I'm frozen. $7 billion. I can't even process what that means. That's not money. That's power, responsibility, a weight I never asked for. Margaret raises her voice over the chaos. The will is ironclad. Richard was evaluated by 3 independent psychiatrists in the 6 months before his death. He was of completely sound mind. The will was written 2 years ago and updated as recently as 6 months ago. Everything is legally binding and has already begun probate. This is fraud. Dad's in Margaret's face now, veins bulging in his neck. My son manipulated him, isolated him from his family. He's not fit to. Mr. Montgomery, Margaret's voice is ice. Your father made his choice for reasons I'm sure he documented. If you wish to contest the will, you're welcome to do so. But I should warn you, Richard anticipated this reaction. He was very thorough in his preparations. The meeting dissolves into shouting. My uncle's on his phone, presumably calling his lawyer. My cousins are filming me on their mobiles, probably already planning their social media sob stories. Mom's crying, real tears this time, but they're tears of rage, not grief. I slip out while they're tearing into Margaret about legal technicalities and psychiatric evaluations. I make it to the car park before my parents catch up with me, and that's when they make their demand. Dad blocks my path to the car, and I actually flinch. I've seen him angry before. When I told him I wanted to be a teacher instead of joining the family business. When I refused to cut Grandpa out of my life like they did. But this is different. This is fury mixed with desperation, mixed with something that looks almost like fear. You're going to sign that money over to us. His voice is low, controlled. Dangerous. All of it. We're your parents. We raised you. That money belongs to the family, not some ungrateful kid who doesn't know the first thing about managing wealth. Mom steps in, playing her role perfectly. The emotional manipulation card. Jake, honey, please. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us. Your grandfather clearly wasn't in his right mind at the end. The decent thing, the right thing, is to give us the inheritance and let the adults handle it. Adults. I'm 24 years old, and they still call themselves the adults, like I'm a child who can't be trusted with pocket money. But here's the thing they don't know. I remember exactly what they did for me. They kicked me out at 18 when I refused to study business at Oxford. Told me I was a disappointment, that I was throwing away my future. Didn't speak to me for 3 years until Grandpa got sick, and suddenly they needed someone to check in on the old man because they were too busy with their luxury holidays and charity galas. I visited Grandpa 47 times in his final 2 years. Dad visited 3 times, each time to ask for money. Uncle David came once for Christmas and left after 45 minutes because the football was on. So no, I don't owe them anything. I look my father in the eye and say something I've wanted to say for 6 years. No. Grandpa left it to me because he knew exactly what you are. I'm keeping every penny. His face goes purple. Actually purple. Mom gasps like I've physically struck her. For a second, I think Dad might actually hit me. But he doesn't. Instead, he says something that hits harder. Then you're not welcome in our home anymore. You've got until tonight to get your things and get out. My stomach drops. I've been living in their guest house for the past 2 months since my flat lease ended and I couldn't afford London rent on a teacher's salary. The guest house, barely allowed in the main house, told to use the side entrance, treated like hired help. Fine, I hear myself say. I'll move into Grandpa's mansion. I own it now anyway. The look on their faces is almost worth the terror churning in my gut. Because yes, I technically own Montgomery Manor, the 15-bedroom estate in the countryside, but I've only been there a handful of times. My parents made sure of that, always making excuses why I couldn't visit. Uncle David's appeared now, and he's got that lawyer smirk on. You think you can just waltz into that house? We're contesting the will, Jake. All assets are frozen pending litigation. You won't be getting your hands on a single pound. Good luck with that, I say, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounds. Margaret seemed pretty confident about Grandpa's preparations. I get in my car and drive away before they can see my hands shaking on the wheel. That night is surreal. I'm packing my stuff, which fits into 2 suitcases and 3 boxes. That's how little I own, while watching through the window as my parents and uncle gather in the main house. I can see them through the lit windows, pacing, gesturing, clearly plotting something. Mom doesn't come out to say goodbye. Neither does Dad. 6 years of estrangement, 3 years of reconciliation that was only ever about Grandpa, and this is how it ends. My phone buzzes as I'm loading the last box into my car. A text from Dad. You'll regret this. We'll take back what's rightfully ours. Not we love you, or we'll miss you, or even good luck. Just a threat. I drive to Montgomery Manor in the dark, the countryside roads winding and empty, and I'm crying. Not sad tears, angry tears, frustrated tears, because part of me still wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, they actually loved me more than they loved money. But Grandpa knew. He knew all along. That's why he left everything to me. The house looms ahead in the darkness, all lit up like something from a film. Mrs. Evans, the housekeeper who's worked here for 40 years, must have prepared for my arrival. As I pull up to the circular driveway, I see her silhouette in the doorway. She's crying when she greets me. He knew you'd come here, Jake. He left instructions for me. Montgomery Manor is the kind of house that has a name instead of an address. 15 bedrooms. Indoor pool. Library with first edition books worth more than my car. Gardens that require a full-time staff. The kind of wealth that stops feeling like money and starts feeling like history. I've only been here a handful of times. Christmas when I was young. A few awkward family dinners before the falling out. And then those precious visits with Grandpa in his final years when I'd sneak over without telling my parents. Mrs. Evans leads me through the entrance hall, past oil paintings of Montgomery ancestors, under chandeliers that probably cost more than a house. She's not just crying, she's properly weeping. "He talked about you every day," she says, her voice breaking. "In those final months, you were all he spoke about. How proud he was. How you were the only one who understood what he'd built." We reach a study. I've never been in here before. It was always off limits, even to family. The door's heavy oak, and when Mrs. Evans pushes it open, I'm hit with the smell of old books and expensive whiskey and something else, Grandpa's cologne. The one he wore every day for 50 years. The room is exactly what you'd expect from a tech billionaire with old money taste. Massive oak desk, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, leather armchairs, a window overlooking the estate. And on the desk, arranged like an exhibition, an envelope with my name on it, a leather-bound journal, and a small brass key. "He left these for you," Mrs. Evans says. "He made me promise to give them to you the moment you arrived. He said," her voice breaks again, "he said you'd need them when they came for you." She leaves me alone. I sit in Grandpa's chair, it still smells like him, and open the envelope with shaking hands. The letter is handwritten. Grandpa's distinctive scrawl, the same handwriting that signed birthday cards when I was little, before everything went wrong. "Jake, if you're reading this, then they've already tried to take it from you. Your father, your uncle, maybe even your cousins. I knew they would. That's why I left everything to you, because you're the only one who never asked me for anything. You're the only one who visited me because you wanted to, not because you wanted something. You're the only one who cares about building something meaningful instead of just spending money you didn't earn. They're going to come for you, son. They're going to try to manipulate you, threaten you, maybe even try to prove you're mentally unfit, or that you coerce me. I've prepared for all of it. I'm crying now, proper sobbing, because I can hear his voice in every word, and I miss him so much it physically hurts. In this journal, you'll find documentation of every conversation I had with your father over the past 20 years, every demand for money, every threat, every lie. You'll also find proof of several things they've done that they definitely don't want public. I didn't keep these records out of vindictiveness, Jake. I kept them because I knew this day would come, and I wanted you to have the truth. To know that you weren't crazy for seeing what you saw. That the dysfunction was real, documented, undeniable. I open the journal with trembling hands. It's meticulous. Dates, times, audio transcripts, video timestamps. Page after page of conversations between Grandpa and Dad. March 15th, 2019. Michael called asking for £200,000 to cover investment losses. When questioned, admitted to gambling debts. This is the fourth such request this year. October 3rd, 2020, Michael and David attempted to convince Dr. Morrison to diagnose me with dementia. I recorded the conversation. They offered him £50,000. January 12th, 2022, Patricia called, crying, saying they're struggling financially. Check their accounts. I'm still listed as authorized, they don't know. They spent £80,000 on a holiday to Dubai last month. On and on. 20 years of manipulation, lies and greed, all documented in Grandpa's careful handwriting. There's more. Copies of forged signatures. Uncle David trying to access company accounts. Evidence of my mother attempting to get power of attorney by claiming Grandpa was mentally incompetent. Screenshots of text messages where my cousins discussed speeding up the inheritance by suggesting Grandpa move to a home. It's devastating. Not because it's surprising. I knew they were awful, but because seeing it all laid out like this, undeniable and documented, makes it real in a way I couldn't ignore. The letter continues. The key opens a safe deposit box at First National Bank downtown, box number 2847. Inside, you'll find something that will protect you when they make their move. And Jake, they will make their move. They're predictable. They're desperate. And desperate people do terrible things. I wish I could be there to help you through this. I wish I could see what you'll build with this inheritance. Because I know you're going to do something meaningful with it. You have my integrity, my work ethic, and my heart. You're the son I wish I'd raised instead of the one I got. I love you, Jake. I'm so proud of you. Don't let them take this from you. You earned it by being a good person in a family of bad ones. Grandpa, I sit in that study for hours, reading through the journal, crying, getting angry, feeling validated and heartbroken all at once. Grandpa knew. He knew everything. And he'd spend the last years of his life documenting it, protecting me, making sure that when this moment came, I wouldn't be defenseless. I fall asleep in his chair, the journal clutched to my chest, and I wake up to the sound of cars, multiple cars, pulling up to the house at 8 a.m. I stumble to the window and look out at the circular driveway. 6 cars, my parents, Uncle David and Aunt Helen, my 3 cousins, and my blood runs cold. 2 men in suits who are definitely lawyers, plus what looks like a private security team. They've come prepared for war, and I'm alone, in a house I barely know, holding nothing but a journal full of secrets. Mrs. Evans appears at the study door, her face pale. Jake! They're demanding to be let in. They say they have legal documents. I've got about 30 seconds to decide what to do. Let them in. Barricade the door. Call the police. My heart's hammering, so hard I can feel it in my throat. Tell them I'll be down in 5 minutes, I say, surprising myself with how calm I sound. Mrs. Evans nods and hurries downstairs. I splash water on my face in Grandpa's and soot bathroom, change into clean clothes, and grab the journal. If they're coming with lawyers, I'm coming with evidence. The entrance hall feels like a battlefield when I descend the grand staircase. Through the glass panels of the front door, I can see them all gathered like an army. Dad at the front, Uncle David beside him holding a leather folder, Mom with her practiced distressed expression, my cousins filming everything on their phones. I take a breath and open the door. Good morning, I say, and Dad doesn't even let me finish. This is an eviction notice. He shoves papers at me. This property is part of our father's estate, and since the will is being contested, all assets are frozen pending litigation. You have 1 hour to vacate the premises, or we'll have security remove you by force. The security team, 2 massive blokes in dark suits, step forward menacingly. My heart's racing, but I force myself to read the papers. It's official looking, stamped and notarized. Except, this isn't signed by Margaret Chun, I say. Who's your lawyer? Uncle David steps forward with that smug lawyer smile. We've retained Bennett and Associates, one of the top estate litigation firms in the country. And yes, Jake, we have 3 psychiatrists willing to testify that our father was showing signs of dementia in his final years. That's bullshit, I say, and Mum gasps like I've sworn in church. Language, she scolds. Jake, please. This doesn't have to be ugly. Just do the right thing. Give us the company, the assets. We'll set up a trust fund for you. You'll never have to work again. But you can't seriously think you're qualified to run Montgomery Innovations. I never said I wanted to run it, I counter. But Grandpa left it to me, and I'm not giving you anything. My cousins are circling with their phones, getting different angles. This is going to be all over social media in an hour, edited to make me look like the villain. You have 1 hour, Dad repeats. We're not leaving until you do. And that's when I make my move. I pull out my phone and make a call. A call I set up last night after reading Grandpa's letter, after seeing the key to the safe deposit box, after realizing exactly what Grandpa had prepared for me. You can come up to the house now, I say into the phone. Dad looks confused. Who are you calling? Backup, I say simply. They don't take me seriously. Why would they? I'm 24. I'm alone. I have no power. They're standing there smirking, probably thinking I've called Margaret Chun and she'll just tell me to comply. 2 minutes pass. 3. The security team is getting restless, clearly ready to start physically removing me. Then we hear it. Another car coming up the drive. A black Mercedes. Not just any Mercedes. An S-Class, the kind that costs more than most people's houses. It pulls up behind their convoy, and the tension shifts immediately. The driver's door opens first, and out steps someone who makes my entire family go pale. James Harrison. The James Harrison. The most feared corporate attorney in the country. The man who's never lost a case. The man who represented Richard Montgomery in the infamous tech wars of the 2000s, the legal battles that built Montgomery Innovations into what it is today. He's 65, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably costs £10,000, and carrying a briefcase that I know contains enough legal firepower to destroy my entire family. But it's the passenger door opening that really makes them freeze. Out steps David Chun. Not Uncle David, David Chun, CEO of Chun Industries. Grandpa's best friend and business partner for 50 years. A man worth $5 billion in his own right. A man whose word carries more weight in the business world than most government officials. The security team actually steps back. My cousins' phones drop to their sides. Mum's mouth is literally hanging open. David Chun walks up to my father with the kind of contempt usually reserved for something you've scraped off your shoe. "Michael," he says, and his voice is ice. "Your father called me 3 months before he died. He told me this exact scenario would happen. And he made me promise to help Jake when you came for him." He turns to me, and his expression softens. "Jake, your grandfather was my best friend. He asked me to protect you from these vultures. So that's what I'm going to do." James Harrison is already moving, briefcase open, pulling out documents. "Now then," he says in that courtroom voice that's intimidated judges and opposing counsel for 4 decades, "let's discuss this eviction notice, shall we?" Harrison doesn't waste time with pleasantries. He pulls out his own folder, much thicker than Uncle David's, and begins systematically dismantling their case. First, let's address the competency claim. He pulls out a document, hands it to Uncle David. Richard Montgomery underwent a full psychiatric evaluation 6 months before his death, specifically because he anticipated this exact challenge. I have here documentation from 3 independent psychiatrists, including Dr. Sarah Chun from Stanford, Dr. Robert Williams from Cambridge, and Dr. Jennifer Moore from Johns Hopkins, all confirming he was of completely sound mind. Uncle David's already pale, but Harrison continues. He scored perfectly on every cognitive test. Mini mental state examination, 30 out of 30. Montreal Cognitive Assessment, perfect score. He was evaluated for memory, language, attention, and executive function. Every metric came back in the top percentile for his age group. Harrison looks directly at my father. He specifically stated in the evaluation, and I quote, "I expect my son Michael and my brother David to challenge my mental state. I want irrefutable proof that I knew exactly what I was doing when I wrote my will." The security team is looking uncomfortable now, probably realizing they've been brought into a family fight they want no part of. Second, Harrison continues, the undue influence claim. Richard kept meticulous records of every interaction with every family member for the past 5 years. He pulls out another document. I recognize it as pages from Grandpa's journal. Jake visited him 47 times in the last 2 years of his life. Regular visits, spending hours at a time, with no requests for money or favors. You, Michael, visited 3 times in those same 2 years. The first time to ask for £150,000 for investment opportunities. The second time to ask for £200,000 for gambling debts. The third time to try to convince Richard to put you in charge of the company before he died. Dad's sweating now. Properly sweating. "You can't prove." "I can prove everything." Harrison cuts him off, his voice cold as death. "Because Richard recorded it. He wore a discreet recording device during every interaction with family members after you tried to have him declared incompetent 2 years ago. Yes, Michael, we know about that. We know you approached Dr. Morrison with £50,000 to falsify a dementia diagnosis. We have the emails. We have the bank transfers. We have everything. The blood drains from Dad's face. Beside him, Uncle David has gone completely still. As for the rest of you, Harrison turns to my cousins. 0 visits. Not 1. So please, explain to a judge how Jake unduly influenced someone he spent time with out of genuine affection, while you lot couldn't be bothered to visit your own grandfather unless there was money involved. David Chun steps forward now. He's been quiet until now, letting Harrison do the legal work, but when he speaks, there's a disgust in his voice that's almost palpable. "Richard was my best friend for half a century," he says, looking at my father. "I watched you bleed him dry for years, Michael. Every failed business venture, every gambling debt, every poor investment, he bailed you out. He gave you everything." He pulls out his phone, shows Dad something on the screen. I can't see it, but whatever it is makes Dad's face go from pale to gray. "That's the record of every payment Richard made to you over the past 20 years, David continues. 4.2 million pounds. 4.2 million pounds, given to you out of love, out of hope that you'd eventually grow up and become responsible. And you repaid him by trying to steal his company while he was still alive. He turns to me, and his voice softens. Your grandfather told me something 3 months before he died. He said, David, I have one grandson who has my heart and integrity, and a family full of vultures who have my name and nothing else. I'm going to make sure the right person gets everything, and I need you to help protect him when they come circling. David looks back at my father. So that's what I'm doing, Michael. I'm protecting Jake from you. Harrison plays his final card. And as for this eviction notice, it's worthless. Jake is the legal owner of this property as of 9 a.m. yesterday morning when probate cleared. Richard structured his estate specifically to avoid delays. Everything transferred immediately upon his death. The house, the company's shares, the assets, all legally Jake's as of yesterday. He steps closer to Uncle David, who's holding that fake eviction notice like it's about to burn him. So not only can you not evict Jake, but you're actually trespassing on his property right now. You have 5 minutes to leave before we call the police and have you removed for trespassing and attempted intimidation. The security team doesn't need to be told twice. They're already heading back to their car. My cousins have gone silent, phone's forgotten. Mom's crying again, but these are real tears now, tears of humiliation and defeat. For a moment, I think it's over. I think they're going to leave with their tails between their legs, and I'll never have to deal with them again. But Dad's not done. Desperate people do desperate things, and my father is nothing if not desperate. Fine, he says, his voice shaking with rage. We'll go public. We'll tell every media outlet in the country that you're a gold digger who manipulated a senile old man. We'll destroy your reputation. You'll never be able to show your face in public again. He looks at Harrison and David. I don't care how many lawyers you have. I don't care how much evidence you think you have. I will burn Jake's reputation to the ground before I let him keep what's rightfully ours. And then he plays his trump card, the one thing he knows will hurt me. We'll tell them everything, Jake. About your troubled past. About the therapy. About why you really had to move back home. We'll paint you as mentally unstable, desperate, willing to do anything for money. And people will believe us, because we're the grieving family, and you're the outsider who swooped in at the last minute. Mum nods, jumping on board. We have friends at every major newspaper. Contacts at BBC, ITV, Sky News. By tomorrow morning, your name will be synonymous with elder abuse. My stomach drops because I know they're serious. And I know they have the connections to do it. Harrison and David exchange a look. Harrison's jaw is clenched. If you go to the media with false allegations, prove they're false, Dad interrupts. Prove that Jake didn't manipulate our father. Oh wait, you can't. Because all you have is paperwork and recordings that can be explained away as the paranoid delusions of a sick old man. He smiles, and it's the cruelest expression I've ever seen on his face. See you on the evening news, son. They leave. All of them. Driving away in their convoy of expensive cars, probably already on the phone to their media contacts, preparing their coordinated attack. I stand in the doorway of my grandfather's mansion, watching them disappear down the drive, and for the first time since this started, I feel actual fear. Because they're right. They can destroy my reputation. And there's nothing I can do to stop them. Or is there? They don't wait. Within 24 hours, my family launches a coordinated media assault that would impress a military strategist. It starts with Uncle David. He's a corporate lawyer with connections at every major news outlet, and he uses every single one. By that evening, he's done sympathetic interviews on BBC News, ITV, and Sky News, painting himself as the concerned brother trying to protect his father's legacy from a manipulative grandson. My father was vulnerable in his final years, he says, dabbing at dry eyes with a handkerchief. And my nephew took advantage of that vulnerability to isolate him from his family. It's textbook elder abuse. The next morning, Mum's on Good Morning Britain, crying on cue for the cameras. Jake has always been troubled, she says, voice breaking. We tried to help him, gave him a place to live, supported him when he couldn't support himself. And this is how he repays us, by manipulating his mentally ill grandfather into cutting out his own children. The interviewer's nodding sympathetically. That must be so difficult for you. You have no idea, Mum sobs. We love my father-in-law. We cared for him. And to see someone we raised, someone we loved, do something so cruel. I'm watching this from Grandpa's study, and I feel physically sick. But it gets worse. My cousins flood social media with coordinated posts. Photos of themselves with Grandpa from years ago, captioned with things like, "Miss you so much, Grandpa. You deserve better than this," and family means everything. Justice will prevail. They're using hashtags. Hashtag elder abuse, hashtag justice for Richard, hashtag gold digger grandson. That last one trends on Twitter for 2 days. The narrative they're spinning is scarily effective. Wealthy old man gets isolated by his troubled grandson. Grandson manipulates vulnerable elderly man into cutting out his loving family. Grandson inherits billions despite having no qualifications or business experience. My phone doesn't stop buzzing. Friends texting asking if the stories are true. Colleagues from school saying they saw me on the news. Even parents of my students messaging to say they're concerned about having someone with questionable ethics teaching their children. The tabloids are camped outside Montgomery Manor 24/7. I can't step outside without cameras in my face, reporters shouting questions. Jake, did you manipulate your grandfather? How does it feel to steal from your own family? Are the mental health claims true? Teaching colleagues start avoiding me. Friends go quiet. Even people I've known for years are suddenly too busy to meet up. The isolation is crushing. It's one thing to know your family hates you. It's another thing to watch the entire world turn against you based on their lies. A week into this media nightmare, I'm sitting in Grandpa's study, watching yet another news segment painting me as a villain, when I remember the key. The safe deposit box at First National Bank. I call James Harrison. I need to access my grandfather's safe deposit box. Are you sure? He asks carefully. Whatever's in there, your grandfather left it as a choice. He wanted you to decide how to handle this. I need to know what I'm dealing with, I say. We go to the bank that afternoon. Harrison, David Chun and me sneaking out through a service entrance to avoid the media circus at the front gate. The bank manager, who remembers Grandpa from decades of business, leads us to the vault. Box number 2847. She leaves us alone in a private room. The box contains a USB drive and another letter. I open the letter first. Jake, if you're opening this, they've gone to the media. I knew they would. They're predictable in their cruelty. On this USB drive is 15 years of documentation, audio recordings, video footage, financial records. Everything you need to show the world exactly who your family really is. But I want you to make a choice. You can release this and destroy them publicly, prove your innocence by revealing their guilt. Or you can take the high road, ignore their attacks, and build something meaningful with your inheritance while they fade into irrelevance. The choice is yours. I'll support whatever you decide. Just remember, the best revenge is a life well lived. Harrison plugs the USB into his laptop. What we find over the next hour is devastating. Audio recordings of my father drunkenly admitting he only had a kid because Grandpa said he'd increase his trust fund if he had an heir. It was just business, mate. Have a kid, get more money. Easy. Video footage of Uncle David and Aunt Helen discussing how to put the old man in a home so they could get power of attorney and access his assets. Once he's declared incompetent, everything's ours. Financial records showing Uncle David embezzling from company accounts, pound 800,000 over 5 years, which Grandpa caught but didn't prosecute because family comes first. Emails from my mother to various doctors trying to bribe them into diagnosing Grandpa with dementia. Screenshots of family group chats where my cousins joke about Inheritance Day and make bets on how much they'll each get. It's absolutely damning. Proof that every single accusation they've made against me is pure projection. They're accusing me of the exact things they actually did. Harrison watches the videos with his jaw clenched. We can destroy them. One press conference, release all of this, and the media narrative flips overnight. They'll be finished. David Chun is quieter. He's watching me, not the screen. Your grandfather gave you a choice for a reason, Jake. He could have released this himself while he was alive. He chose not to. Why? I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Because he wanted you to be better than them. David says simply. He wanted you to have the choice he never gave himself between justice and mercy. Between winning by their rules or winning by yours. I spent the next 3 days agonizing over what to do. I listened to the recordings on repeat. My father saying I was an investment that didn't pay off. My mother laughing about how easy it was to manipulate Grandpa by pretending to care. Uncle David coldly calculating how to have Grandpa declared incompetent so they could liquidate assets before the old fool wasted it all on charity. It's devastating. Not because it's surprising. I knew they were awful, but because hearing it out loud, in their own voices, makes it undeniable. Harrison keeps pushing me to release it. Jake, they're destroying your reputation. Your students' parents are calling for you to be fired. You can't even leave the house. End this. But David offers different advice. You can win by proving they're monsters, or you can win by proving you're not one. Your grandfather knew which choice would define the kind of man you become. I think about Grandpa, about the hours we spent together talking about his regrets, how he wished he'd spent less time fighting business battles and more time building things that mattered. How he said the thing he was most proud of wasn't the billions, it was creating jobs, innovating technology that helped people, building something that lasted. Revenge is easy, he told me once. Building something meaningful? That's hard. That's legacy. I make my decision. I call a press conference for the next day. The press conference is packed. Every major outlet, dozens of cameras, reporters crammed into the Montgomery Innovations headquarters conference room. And sitting in the front row, smug and confident, my entire family. They think I'm about to surrender. I can see it in their faces. Dad's got this barely contained smile. Mom's already dabbing at her eyes, preparing her forgiveness speech. Uncle David's got his phone out, probably ready to tweet about their victory. They have no idea what's coming. I step up to the microphone. The room goes silent. Cameras flash. I can feel sweat running down my back, but I keep my voice steady. My name is Jake Montgomery, and I'm here to address the claims made about me over the past week. Dad's actually grinning now. This is it, he thinks. The confession. My family has painted me as a manipulative gold digger who took advantage of my grandfather. They've said I isolated him, that he wasn't in his right mind, that I'm unfit to inherit his legacy. I pause, make eye contact with my father. His smile widens. I'm not going to deny that I inherited my grandfather's estate. I'm not going to deny that it's an enormous responsibility. But I am going to set the record straight about one thing: who my grandfather really was and why he made the choice he did. I pull out a photo, one I found in Grandpa's study. Him and me from 2 years ago, sitting at a small cafe in town, both of us laughing at something stupid I'd said. This was taken on my grandfather's 76th birthday. I took him out for coffee because that's what he wanted. Not a big party at some expensive restaurant. Not another watch he'd never wear, just time with his grandson. We sat for 3 hours and talked about life, about his regrets, about his hopes for the future. The room is completely silent now. Even the reporters have stopped fidgeting. He told me that day that the thing he was most proud of wasn't his billions or his business empire. It was that he'd built something from nothing. That he created value in jobs and innovation. That thousands of people had better lives because of what he built. I look at my mother, and she's gone pale. And he told me he was heartbroken that his own children only saw dollar signs when they looked at him. That every visit, every phone call, every family dinner was just an audition for the will. That he'd become a bank account with a pulse to the people who were supposed to love him unconditionally. Dad's smile is gone now. Uncle David is staring at the floor. My grandfather wasn't senile. He wasn't manipulated. He made a choice based on 15 years of watching his family treat him like an ATM machine. He left everything to me not because I asked for it. I never did. But because he believed I would honor his legacy by building something meaningful instead of just spending money I didn't earn. I pull out the USB drive. Hold it up where everyone can see it. I have evidence that would prove everything I'm saying. Recordings, documents, financial records showing years of manipulation and greed. Video footage of family members discussing how to have my grandfather declared incompetent so they could access his money. Audio recordings of them admitting they only maintained relationships with him for financial gain. My father goes rigid. Mom's hand flies to her mouth. My lawyers have advised me to release it, to destroy their credibility, and this media circus, and prove once and for all that my grandfather knew exactly what he was doing. The reporters are on the edge of their seats. This is the bombshell they've been waiting for. And I'm not going to do that. The room erupts in confused murmuring. Dad looks stunned. Uncle David's head snaps up. I'm not going to release the evidence because I'm not interested in destroying my family. I'm interested in building something my grandfather would be proud of. I put the USB drive back in my pocket. My grandfather gave me a choice. I could win by proving they're monsters, or I could win by proving I'm not one. And I choose the latter. I look directly at the cameras now, speaking to everyone watching at home. So here's what's going to happen. I'm keeping the inheritance. I'm taking control of Montgomery Innovations. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that wealth can be used for something other than ego and excess. I pull out prepared statements, hand them to the reporters in the front row. Effective immediately, I'm establishing the Richard Montgomery Education Foundation with an initial endowment of $500 million. This foundation will provide full scholarships to students from low-income backgrounds who want to study STEM fields, the kinds of kids who have the potential but not the privilege. Cameras are flashing like crazy now. I'm also implementing profit sharing at Montgomery Innovations. 20% of annual profits will be distributed among all employees, from the janitors to the senior executives. My grandfather believed that the people who build a company deserve to share in its success. David Chun is smiling in the back of the room. He knew this is what I do. And I'm committing $1 billion over the next 10 years to renewable energy research and development. My grandfather built his fortune on innovation. I'm going to continue that legacy by investing in the technology that might actually save this planet. The reporters are frantically taking notes. This is a completely different story than the one they came here to write. As for my family, I look at them now, and for the first time, I feel nothing but pity. You're welcome to challenge the will in court. You'll lose, and you'll spend hundreds of thousands on legal fees to confirm what you already know. Grandpa meant what he said. Or you can accept reality, move on with your lives, and maybe examine why the person who loved you most in the world chose to leave you nothing. I step away from the microphone. The room explodes with questions, but I'm done. I've said what I needed to say. Harrison and David escort me out through a back entrance while security handles the media frenzy. My father tries to follow, tries to corner me one last time, but security stops him. I can hear him shouting as we leave. This isn't over. You can't just. But it is over. We all know it. That night, my phone buzzes. A text from Dad. You're still not welcome in this family. I stare at it for a long moment. Then I type back. I'm okay with that. And I mean it. 6 months later, I'm standing in Grandpa's study, my study now, looking out over the estate. It's early morning, and the grounds are covered in frost that sparkles in the sunrise. Montgomery Innovations stock is up 23%. Turns out investors like companies that treat employees well. Who knew? The Education Foundation has already awarded 150 full scholarships. I got a letter last week from a girl in Manchester whose single mom works 3 jobs. She's going to Cambridge to study engineering because of Grandpa's money, because of what I chose to do with it. The Renewable Energy Division just secured a major breakthrough in solar panel efficiency. We might actually have something that could change the industry. And me, I'm still teaching. 3 days a week, I go to the same comprehensive school in East London and teach Year 5 English. The kids don't care that I'm a billionaire. They care that I make learning fun and that I remember all their names and that I genuinely want them to succeed. The other 4 days, I work at Montgomery Innovations, learning the business from people who've been doing it for decades. I'm not CEO. I hired someone brilliant for that. But I'm involved, learning, understanding what Grandpa built. My family tried to contest the will. They spent £200,000 on lawyers before quietly dropping it 3 months ago. The evidence was too strong. Harrison didn't even have to use Grandpa's recordings. The psychiatric evaluations and visitation records were enough. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Dad's consulting firm finally collapsed. Uncle David's facing embezzlement charges. Turns out Grandpa wasn't the only person he'd stolen from. Mum's moved to Spain, presumably to escape the shame. My cousins have all deleted their social media accounts. I should feel vindicated, victorious, but mostly I just feel sad for them. They had everything: wealth, privilege, opportunities most people dream of, and they threw it all away because they couldn't see past their own greed. There's a photo on my desk now. The one from Grandpa's 76th birthday, him and me laughing over coffee. Beside it is a handwritten note he left in his study that I found last month, tucked into a book. Jake, family isn't about blood or obligation. It's about who believes in you when you have nothing, and who still sees you as human when you have everything. You've always seen me as human. That's why you get everything else. Build something that matters. That's the real inheritance. I love you, Grandpa. I think about that every day. When I'm meeting with the foundation board, when I'm approving research budgets, when I'm teaching kids who remind me so much of younger me, kids who don't have advantages but have potential that just needs someone to believe in it. The money doesn't feel real most days. It's just numbers and accounts, investments I don't fully understand yet, properties I haven't visited. But the impact, that's real. The scholarships are real. The profit-sharing checks that let employees actually afford to buy houses, real. The research that might actually help solve climate change, real. That's what Grandpa wanted. Not a dynasty of wealth hoarders, but a legacy of positive change. I pull out my phone and open Twitter. #GoldDiggerGrandson is trending again, but this time the tweets are different. Jake Montgomery just donated another $50 million to education. Meanwhile, his family spent that much trying to prove he was the bad guy. Who's the villain here? Imagine being so greedy that you'd rather destroy your own kid than let him use inherited money to literally save the world. Jake's family is delusional. Anyone else notice how Jake's still teaching primary school kids despite being worth $7 billion? That's not a gold digger. That's someone who actually cares. I close the app. I don't need their validation any more than I needed my family's approval. I've got something better. Purpose. Legacy. The knowledge that I'm building something that would make Grandpa proud. My phone rings. David Chun. Jake, have you seen the renewable energy numbers? We're 6 months ahead of schedule on the solar project. I smile. Grandpa would have loved that. He would have loved all of it. David says, and I can hear the emotion in his voice. He'd be so damn proud of you, kid. We talk strategy for a while, meetings I need to take, decisions I need to make. Then, before hanging up, David says something that makes my throat tight. Your grandfather told me once that the measure of a man isn't what he inherits. It's what he builds with it. You're building something extraordinary, Jake. Don't ever forget that. After we hang up, I sit in Grandpa's chair, my chair, and look around the study. At the books he collected, the awards he won, the photos of a life well lived. And I make a promise to him, wherever he is, I'm going to keep building, keep innovating, keep using this wealth to create opportunities for people who never had them. Not because I have to prove something to my family, not because I need to justify the inheritance, but because that's what Grandpa would have done. And if I'm going to carry his name, I'm damn well going to carry his values too. Family isn't about blood. It's about who believes in you, who sees your potential, who gives you the tools to build something meaningful and trusts you to do it right. Grandpa believed in me when no one else did. Now it's my turn to believe in others. That's the real inheritance, and it's worth more than $7 billion could ever be.